They said the sky looked normal that day. Blue, quiet, just another Mississippi morning stretching out across the cotton fields like it always had. But for Gloria Walker, July 16, 1984, never ended. She remembered the screen door swinging back, too slow. The sound of the gravel crunching under her daughter's shoes as she walked off down the dirt road. Said she'd be back by supper. 15 years old, asked a wide for a town too small. That was the last time Gloria saw her. I'm Mark Joie, and you're watching Injustice Browning. If this story moves you, if it makes you feel something, anything, don't scroll. Subscribe, comment, speak her name. We tell these stories because someone has to, because too many of them vanish. Not just the girls, but the truth. They told Gloria to calm down when she called the sheriff that night. Said girls her age wander off all the time. Maybe she had a boyfriend. Maybe she was acting out. Maybe she didn't want to be found. That was the word they used. Maybe. Maybe was all they had when the child was black. The sheriff never came to the house. No dogs. No flyers. No search team. Nothing but a clipboard and an attitude. One white deputy leaned on his truck and actually laughed, said she probably ran off with some dope boy from Jackson. Gloria stood there with her fists clenched at her sides, knees shaking, teeth locked. She said, "My baby don't even know nobody in Jackson." The man shrugged. Didn't write that part down. They didn't even get her name right the first three. Time stopped the next morning. Gloria printed flyers on the old church machine, walked door to door, pinned them up on telephone poles that had termites eating through them. She waited outside the station every day, brought them coffee once, just to get them to look at her longer than a second. They said, "We're working on it." But they weren't. What they were doing was forgetting, letting time do what it does in towns like that. Erase until all that's left is whispers and warnings. The worst part wasn't even the silence. It was the looks, the way people started crossing the street to avoid her, the way the pastor's wife stopped hugging her, the way other black folks stopped meeting her eyes scared. Maybe whatever took her daughter might come for theirs next. Grief is a kind of prison when no one believes you deserve justice. Every time Gloria walked past that empty bedroom, her stomach twisted, Lanesha's Sunday dress still hanging on the closet hook, hair grease still on the nightstand, radio still tuned to the same gospel station. She'd sit in there some nights and whisper, "I know you didn't leave me. I know somebody took you, but in that town, fate had limits, especially for women like her." She cleaned floors at the courthouse, swept up the mud from their boots, wiped spit off the sinks in the men's bathroom, and every Thursday, she scrubbed the sheriff's office, staring at the wall where her daughter's name was never posted. They had a board for open cases. Her daughter wasn't on it. One day, she asked. The sheriff didn't look up, just said, "Ain't no update, Miss Walker. Go on and finish that mop." That was the moment, that one right there, when something in Gloria snapped, but not in the way you'd think. It didn't explode. It didn't burn hot. It settled in her chest like coal, heavy, still, waiting. Because see, when the law fails you, you stop expecting it to save you. And when people laugh at your pain, you learn how to carry it alone. Gloria never stopped believing, even when the town moved on, even when they tore down the tree where Lanesha was last seen and paved over the ditch where her shoe was found, even when the whispers turned to silence and the silence turned to shame. She never stopped writing her daughter's name on the back of church bulletins, never stopped praying loud enough for God to hear her even if the world wouldn't. And every morning, before work, she would sit with her coffee and whisper, "I'll find you, one way or another." Nobody noticed when she stopped smiling, but inside her, that quiet fire had already started, and it wasn't going out. They don't tell you how quiet grief gets when it's been ignored long enough. They don't tell you about the way time stops, meaning anything when nobody believes you and everybody wishes you just stopped talking about it. That's what it was like for Gloria. She wasn't a mother looking for her child anymore. She was the woman people crossed the aisle to avoid at the Piggly Wiggly, the one they whispered about at the salon, still talking about that girl. It's been months. Like there was an expiration date on pain, even at church, where she used to feel safe, where Lanesha sang in the choir every second Sunday folks got cold. Some of the women who used to hold her hand during prayer started sitting somewhere else. Not all at once, but little by little. They'd smile politely, nod, and then look away. You could tell the pastor didn't know what to do with her anymore. During service, he'd glance her way when he spoke about moving on and forgiveness. The choir stopped singing her daughter's favorite hymn. The church moved on. Gloria didn't. She still cleaned that same courthouse 5 days a week, walked past the same faces, the same fake smiles, the same offices where her daughter's case had been filed away, and every day, that mop hit the same floor where men who ignored her drank coffee and talked about real crime. That building wasn't justice. It was a museum of who mattered. Her picture wasn't on the wall. Sometimes she'd stand in the bathroom stall just to cry, just 5 minutes before she had to clean it again. No tears at home anymore, only there, behind the tiled silence, because she still had one child to raise, Darnell. Her boy was 12 when Lanesha vanished. Smart kid, always drawing, always asking questions. But after that summer, something in him changed. He got mean, quiet at first, then sharp, started fighting at school. Teachers said he had a problem with authority. But what they didn't know is that authority had a problem with people like him. Long before he ever lifted a hand, he wasn't angry for no reason. He saw what they did to his mama, how the town turned on her, how the sheriff smirked when she asked about her daughter's file, how the world could break your heart and then mock you for trying to fix it. And one night, after another school suspension, Gloria found him tearing up one of Lanesha's old pictures. Not on purpose, just mad, just lost. She didn't yell. She just picked it up, put the torn pieces on the kitchen table, and said, "This house don't break. Baby, we bend, but we don't break." He didn't say anything. But the next day, he taped it back together and slid it under her pillow. That night, a knock came at the door. She opened it and found one of the deputies. Not the laughing one from before, a younger one. Quiet, polite, white. He took off his hat, looked down. I said, "Miss Walker, I just came to tell you. Folks in town, they're getting tired of all the noise." Gloria stared at him. "What noise?" she asked. He didn't answer right away, just shifted on his feet. "I know you hurting. I'm just saying, sometimes asking too many questions only makes it harder." Then he tipped his hat, turned around, and walked off into the dark like he hadn't just threatened a grieving mother. With a smile on his lips, Gloria locked the door, sat on the edge of her bed, and for the first time in weeks, she opened her nightstand drawer. Inside were stacks of letters, all addressed the same way. Dear Lanesha. She'd been writing them since the week her daughter vanished. Every Sunday night, like a ritual, like prayer, just a few lines each time, telling her what the house smelled like, what Darnell said that made her laugh, what the preacher's sermon was about, what she cooked, and sometimes she'd whisper things she couldn't say out loud, like how scared she was, how bitter, how tired of pretending she was okay. There was no stamp, no envelope, just her pen and that soft scratch of ink on paper, trying to keep her daughter alive the only way she could, because the world had buried Lanesha without a coffin, without a name carved in stone, without even a proper goodbye. But Gloria, she refused to let that girl vanish. Not in memory, not in spirit, not in truth. And though nobody in that town saw her as anything but a broken mother with a mop and a mouth too loud, deep down, she knew something they didn't. Silence may be a weapon, but she had learned how to survive the quiet, and she had fire now. She just hadn't lit the match yet. By the time Gloria turned 60, the world outside had changed, but her inside hadn't. She lived on the 3rd floor of a red brick building on the south side of Chicago. 2-bedroom, corner unit, window facing the alley. Darnell lived with her, grown now, beard thick, hands calloused from years behind the wheel of a CTA bus. 20 years gone. And still, she wrote the letters. Not every week anymore. Sometimes, just once a month. But they kept coming. That same spiral-bound notebook, soft from age, pages smudged with thumbprints and grief. She never showed Darnell. He didn't ask. He loved his mother, but he didn't talk about Lanesha. Not anymore. It lived deep in both of them, like a bruise that never fully healed. Every time her name came up, his jaw tightened, his eyes pulled away. Then came the envelope. No knock, no buzz at the door, just a plain white envelope slid under her front door sometime between morning coffee and Darnell coming home from the day shift. She picked it up. No name, no return address. She opened it slowly, hands shaking not from fear, from knowing. Somewhere, deep in her bones, she already knew. Inside was a photo, a Polaroid, faded to yellow, curled edges, a young black girl. standing in front of a dented pickup truck, face swollen, one eye nearly shut, shirt torn at the shoulder, and in her eyes panic, pain, pleading. It was her. It was Lanesha. Gloria sat down on the kitchen floor like her knees had forgotten how to hold her. For minutes, she didn't move, just stared. That face, her baby's face, older than she remembered, maybe 16, maybe 17, but still her. She turned the photo over. For words, scrawled in crooked ink. You was right. That was all. When Darnell came home, she was still sitting at the table, the photo in front of her like it might disappear if she blinked along. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at it, then said, flat, "Where'd you get this?" Someone slid it under the door. His face twisted. That could be fake. It's not. Photos lie, Ma. You know they do. She looked up at him. Her voice cracked, but her eyes didn't. This one don't. He didn't argue again, just walked into his room and closed the door harder than he meant to. That night, Gloria didn't sleep. She pulled out her letters, the whole stack, read through them one by one, looking for clues, looking for. She didn't even know what. Hope had always been her enemy, but now it was something else, something sharper. The next morning, she sat down at her son's old computer, the one he used for bills and bus schedules. She didn't know how to Google much, but she knew names. Started with the sheriff. Deputy Gerald Munson, now retired, living in Biloxi, grandfather of 4. She kept going. She searched the county name, found an old article from 1991 about a girls' reformatory program that shut down after complaints of misconduct. The woman who ran it, Margaret Quill, white, former schoolteacher turned rehabilitation expert, quietly moved to Florida. It wasn't much, but it wasn't nothing. She started making a list. Names, towns, dates, cross-referencing. It took weeks, late nights, coffee going cold, hands cramping from the mouse, eyes burning from the screen. Darnell didn't stop her, but he didn't help either. Just left extra coffee on the table, kept his voice low, like he knew the air in that apartment had changed. Because now the silence wasn't grief anymore. It was fuel. And soon, patterns started to form. Names of other girls, missing, mostly black, all between the years of 82 and 87, some from surrounding counties. None of their cases made the news. Girls with no last names on the reports. Girls who were labeled runaways without evidence. Girls who didn't have mothers like Gloria. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. And suddenly, those letters she wrote all those years, they weren't just for comfort anymore. They were testimony. And Gloria Walker was done whispering. She folded the photo carefully, placed it in the center of her Bible, right next to a small slip of paper she wrote that night. 3 words. I'm coming back. The bus ride back to Mississippi felt like a wild reopening. 32 years gone, but the trees still leaned the same way. The fields still whispered the same old lies. Time had moved forward everywhere except here. Gloria Walker stepped off that Greyhound with her purse clutched tight and her shoulders squared like armor. Her hands shook, but her spine didn't. She wasn't the same woman they ignored all those years ago. She was older, slower, but grief had hardened into something that didn't break easy. She wasn't here to ask this town for anything. She came to take. The first stop was a small nursing home on the edge of town, faded siding, to flags out front, American and Confederate. She walked past both without blinking. Inside, the man she came to see lay hunched in a recliner, half swallowed by a blanket, remote in hand. Gerald Munson, former deputy, former man who laughed in her face. His eyes squinted when he saw her. Took me a second, he croaked. Thought you was dead. No, Gloria said, but you should be. He chuckled, but it turned into a cough, a wet, choking sound that left him breathless. What you want? He wheezed. She pulled a chair close, not out of kindness, but so he could hear every word. You remember my daughter, Lanesha. You remember how you said she ran off. He stared at her, didn't answer. She leaned in. I got a picture now. Sent to me in Chicago. She didn't run off. You know that. You always knew that. His lips twitched. Eyes darted to the hallway, then back to her. You think you the only one who lost somebody, he whispered. Things got handled back then. That's how it worked. Handled. She repeated, like the word tasted like ash. He went on, his voice getting slower, unraveling like thread. There was a man, used to come through from Alabama, drove a green Ford, paid cash. Sometimes girls would go missing after. She didn't flinch, didn't cry. Why her? He looked at her like a man halfway between guilt and fear. She was pretty, and too loud, that he coughed again, hard this time. Nurse came in. He waved her off. But the damage was done. He'd said what he shouldn't have. And she knew it. Outside, Gloria sat in the rental car, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight they went numb. He hadn't given her closure. He gave her a crack in the wall. She drove to the old courthouse next, not to beg, not this time, but to find someone. Edward Jennings used to work records in the basement. Black man, 5 years older than her, quiet, back then, too smart for his job, but too careful to say it. She found him at a small insurance office, balding, glasses perched, on his nose, shocked to see her. Lord, Gloria, I need to ask you something, she said, and I don't want you to lie. He didn't. He told her about how boxes of missing persons reports from the 80s had been marked for disposal. In '95, cleaning up the archives, they said, but he'd seen what was inside photos, notes, some with names scratched out, and he remembered Lanesh's file, the one with the name Margaret Quill scribbled in the margins. She ran that place out on Hollow Pines Road, he told her, said it was a home for troubled girls, but none of them ever came back. Is the file gone? He shook his head slowly. Not all of it. Turns out Edward had kept copies, just a few, just enough to remind himself he wasn't crazy. Gloria sat in his office while he pulled out a folder wrapped in an old grocery bag. Inside were 6 names, 6 missing black girls, all labeled runaway, all tied to that same home, all gone within a 5-year stretch. They were never listed together, never investigated as a pattern, never even searched for beyond a week or two, all poor, all from broken homes, they said, but all real. Darnell told her to come back, said she didn't owe this town her blood anymore, but Gloria couldn't. Not yet. She called a number from a card she'd been saving. Jasmine Cole, young journalist, wrote a piece a year ago on the anniversary of Sandra Bland's death that made Gloria cry. She picked up on the second ring. This is Jasmine. You don't know me. My name's Gloria Walker. I think I have a story for you. Jasmine met her the next morning in Jackson. Gloria showed her the folder, the photo, the quote from the dying man. By the end of the day, Jasmine wasn't blinking. This isn't a story, she whispered. This is a cover-up. Gloria nodded. That's why I came back. They spent a week going through archives, courthouse, logs, old news clippings. Jasmine had access Gloria never dreamed of. She knew where to look, who to call, and the more they dug, the more filth came up from under the floorboards. A whole generation of missing girls, swallowed by the swamp, and every name they found made the silence of the last 30 years even louder. But Gloria didn't break. She had lived inside that silence. Now she was here to shatter it. Some fires don't need gasoline, just one match, one dry corner of truth that's been waiting too long to burn. The story dropped quietly. Jasmine published it on a Tuesday. No sirens, no headlines, just a link, a thread, a name, Lanesha Walker. At first, the silence felt familiar. The same silence Gloria had lived in for 3 decades. The kind that wraps itself around black grief and dares it to scream. But then, it moved. A share, a repost, a video. Then another dot, and another dot. Young voices who didn't know Lanesha started saying her name. Black Twitter lit up like a fuse. Hashtags, screenshots, photos of other missing girls. Questions no one had dared to ask out loud now echoing. Across the country, why weren't they searched for? Where are the reports? Who buried the truth? The town tried to act surprised. Officials stumbled through statements about new information and reopening investigations. But people knew. Folks who once said nothing suddenly had stories. A woman who worked at a diner remembered seeing a girl with a bruised face, escorted by a man in uniform. A retired janitor recalled a closet full of sealed boxes at the old sheriff's office. A nurse from that shutdown home came forward, hands trembling, confessing she was told not to ask questions about certain girls who arrived at night and disappeared by morning. Then came the break. An old evidence bag, mislabeled, forgotten, in a storage unit. Inside, a tattered piece of denim pants that belonged to Lanesha. A sliver of blood still clinging to the fabric. DNA testing didn't lie. And neither did the match. One of the men still alive, once a deputy, later promoted to sheriff, was arrested. Mugshot plastered across every news site that had once ignored the story. His face looked confused, as if justice was some new language he'd never been forced to learn. Gloria didn't go to the courthouse that day. She didn't need to. She'd already walked through that fire. She'd already buried the pieces of herself that the system tried to silence. Instead, she stood in the same field where her daughter was last seen. The grass was taller now, trees older. The dirt had shifted, but not enough to forget Dot in her hands was one last letter. Not folded, not hidden. This time, she read it out loud. People stood around her, a circle of flame in memory. Mothers, daughters, sons, activists, journalists, strangers who were family now, each one holding a candle, each flame refusing to bow to the wind. She cleared her throat. The paper shook, but her voice didn't break. Dear Lanesha, they tried to erase you, said you ran away, said you didn't matter. But baby, you did, you do, and now everybody knows your name. I wish I could hold you again. I wish I could have kept you safe. But I kept your voice alive. I carried it through hell and back, and now it's not just mine. It belongs to the world. You belong to the world. She lowered the paper, looked around at the candles glowing in the dusk. A reporter snapped a photo. No one posed. They just stood in that stillness. Then the silence breathed before it broke. Then Gloria spoke one last time. Her words soft, but unshakable. I never got her back, but I got the silence to break, and that was enough. That was everything, because some stories don't end in rescue. Some end in reckoning, and some end in fire.